Welcome to Extraordinary Women in Tech, an amazing group of female executives join hands to amplify women's voice in the tech sector. Be a speaker, add your voice, be inspired. Inspire a new generation in becoming an extraordinary woman in tech. Join us in making history. Join us in giving a voice to women. Add your voice by subscribing to our channel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Extraordinary Women in Tech. My name is Nariman Jamal. I am a business development specialist here at Avenue Code. Please allow me to introduce our panel for today. We have with us today Fariba Rawhani. She is the CIO at Teranet, as a visionary executive with 20 years of success in industry-leading organizations like EDS, CIBC, and Home Capital Group. In her role, Fariba is responsible for the company's full range of information technology functions, that including IT strategy, development, delivery, information security, digital transformation, automation, data governance, analytics, and cloud strategy. Thank you for joining us today, Fariba. Welcome. Next, we have Caitlin O'Donovan, who is the VP of Digital Commerce at Simplex. Kate began her career producing multiplayer games for science centers and museums around the world. She has executed strategies to build a 360 distribution business across direct-to-consumer platforms. This included global partnerships with Apple, Google, and YouTube, domestic nonlinear VOD packaging and pricing, and overseeing digital products like apps, websites, e-commerce, and initiatives. Welcome, Caitlin. We're so excited to have you. Last but not least, Daniella Yanez, who is the Director of Digital Operations and Strategy at The Source, Canada. She has extensive product management experience leading roadmap execution, partnering with IT teams and third-party vendors. Daniella also has a track record of delivering and optimizing engaging digital UX for all screens and mobile apps, driving activations, upsell, loyalty, and self-serve. Welcome, Daniella. Thank you so much for joining us today. We truly have an extraordinary panel joining us today, so we are looking forward to hear about your experiences and insights about technology, business, and women in the tech field. So I'll kick off this webinar really asking you all a question very relatable to what we're noticing today, and this is about social media. How do you think today's social media is changing the world? And we'd like to know if you use any specific apps, and if you can tell us a little bit about your experience using social media apps. I'll start here with Kate.
Thank you, and hi, everybody. Yeah, I think, look, 2020 was fascinating when it came to social media, especially over the last year. And I think those social platforms really played a huge role in prompting and sustaining social movements in a way that I think we hadn't really seen in North America. In many cases, I think in other areas of the world, but kind of a local lived experience was, I think, very new to a number of people. And you know, the Black Lives Matter, Black Trans Lives Matter movements, just as such powerful voices on social media that prompted action. And many companies and governments around, you know, education and hiring practices, marketing spends and funding allocation. And I think how those conversations are just continuing and how companies and leaders are held accountable to, you know, the change that they said they were going to do is just going to keep unfolding in the months ahead in these spaces that social platforms allow for us. And I think it's an exciting time. And I think also, as we can see, there's also a darker side potentially to it. So, you know, look at how some of the social platforms were leveraged for action by a former president who really tapped into these networks to rally a very active base. And so, again, I think as we look at what the next years and months to come, I think these social networks are complex systems that will continue to evolve along with communities that use them. So, personally, right now, I've actually mostly been using Clubhouse. It's like this live audio-based network. What I like about it is that it feels like this 24/7 conference that lets me like pop into a live podcast. And it's everything from, there was one last week that was on like rockets and rideshare in space. And I learned so much from these NASA scientists that were all just in this meeting, to like freemium models and an MMA one. And so again, I just love this very informal knowledge, peer-to-peer openness. I think it's early days for that network, and I just hope it, fingers crossed, I hope it scales well. Thank you.
I recently joined the Clubhouse and I think it's great. So probably recommending it for everyone. Let's go here to Daniela. How was your experience and what kind of social media apps do you use?
Yes, well, I've been thinking, well, I think everybody's thinking a lot about social media these days and what is the impact in our personal lives, health, and businesses. To me, it's a platform. It's just another channel that is obviously very powerful. And as a channel is not, I believe we cannot associate qualities to it in the sense of saying it's evil or is the answer to everything. Like it's just a platform in which that reflects us as a society. So the point is, how do we use it as individuals and as businesses? And what are the ethics around that? So to me, it exposes all of our weaknesses and all of our potential. Like Kathleen was saying, we can use it for good. And I wouldn't give up on that goal. As an emerging channel, we are going through a huge transformation in settling what are the right balance for it. How do we really keep it positive? And I've seen some of the networks have that trend. For example, TikTok, which I was using with my son. It's not accepted to do certain things or say certain things. Like it's quickly censored by the same audiences that are using the network when people are trying to bully somebody or just try to spread their own values. So I think we're going to see how the networks are going to regulate themselves as the values in society are reflected in those networks. Personally, I've been using a lot of Pinterest for personal uses, for inspiration, both about home renos, about crafts to do with my kids, or how to keep up with working from home and how to organize ourselves. Like there's so many ideas, and I always use it kind of like I create my own version of things. But I love to see what people are doing, and I love the wealth of the content, and also how you can do visual search, and then I want to make this cake, but then there's 10 different versions of that cake that other people interpreted differently. So it's fun. And I use a lot of Internet Movie Database. It's a very old portal, and I use it for entertainment to just keep track of all of my watch list and what are we watching at home, and what order are we doing marathons. So those are the two that I'm using the most.
Amazing. Pinterest is amazing for everyone around this planet and different things as well. Thank you for sharing, Daniela. Fariba, I'll move to you here. What are your thoughts about the social media today, and what are you?
Thank you, Nariman. Adding to what Caitlin and Daniela were saying, I think social media is profoundly changing the way we interact. If we think back, not long time ago, not everyone had access to knowledge. It wasn't so available. We didn't share ideas. We didn't have marketplaces. We didn't exchange clothing or anything. Anything is available. I believe that what happened with COVID, it just highlighted how important technology is, how important social media is, connectivity, and how this humanity, the globe, needs each other to share and really communicate and interact. So while there was physical distance, I think because of COVID, distances became shorter, and social media facilitated that change in the way we communicate. Now, I love LinkedIn. I still use Facebook and LinkedIn. The reason I always like social media like LinkedIn, because I think professionals need a way to connect to each other, a way to keep track of where their colleagues are, what's happening, read the news about companies, and help each other. So I have always found LinkedIn is really helpful for professional women, and we're going to talk about them. On the personal level, I have family across the globe, and my mom is on Facebook. So I use Facebook to keep in touch with my friends and family. And then I am an avid user of YouTube. I learned how to bake bread. I take courses, you name it. So, but all in all, I think it goes to something what my colleagues said is on one hand, it connects us. The world without social media is not imaginable for us anymore. It's multi-generational. It has no barriers. It has no limitations. On the other hand, we have responsibilities. Our responsibility more than ever before is not to let fake news or biases creep into our understanding, to do our homework, to really, research things, to search for ourselves, search for the truth, and have a voice, and encourage an open, free market of ideas, and leverage it for the good. And as technologies, stand up when it's not used for the good. So with that comes responsibility. But I'm really hopeful that social media will continue to evolve.
Hopefully. And I'm thankful for it too, personally, because my family is also abroad. And if I didn't have video calls, Facebook to keep up with everyone, I would have probably gone crazy. So everything has pros and cons, but I'm glad to. Fariba, you did win 10 Best CIO Industry Awards. So congratulations for that. And a large part of your role is to help bridge the gap between technology and business. How do you measure your success as a CIO? And what are the main key advice that you give to female CIOs or leaders who are growing to become one?
It's hard to believe, but first of all, thank you. It's an honor to be recognized on behalf of all women in IT. So it was a pleasure to accept that. The role of the CIO actually is not that, it hasn't been around forever. It's 2 decades. My first CIO role was when my daughter was a year old. So I measure everything before and after her. But I think the role of the CIO is unique, and a woman CIO is even more unique. The role of the CIO is unique because there is only the business of the company. Artificial barriers are created when we say these are business, this is IT, that's that, that's this. Early on in my career, I decided that the business was IT. I could see the future, that the day will come that we are all IT businesses. We just happen to be in product development, in sales, in back office, in front office. We happen to have technology expertise, but we are all in the business of IT. And we are all in the business of the company. We are all in the business of sales. But the most important business we are in is to deliver value to customers because they deserve it. Also, to make the life easy for our employees. So when I think about my role as a CIO and what does success look like, is when I feel that because of technologies we put in, the processes we have transformed, customers feel that they're getting excellent service from the company ethically, and that the employees feel they have the tools, the processes that make their jobs meaningful. So a CIO is not head of IT, is actually responsible for the digital transformation of a company. But as a female CIO, we are also part of a community of CIOs. So we are responsible to help each other, to share ideas. So for me, the most important thing is to eliminate silos, bring about the right level of collaboration, ensure that regardless of age, gender, preferences, that the workplace is accessible. And that's the role technology plays.
And I have so many things to ask you based on this answer, but we have time here for the webinar, so maybe we can have a chat later. But thank you so much for this. And talking about digital project, I'll move here towards you, Kate. You have mentioned in our previous discussion how investing in any digital project will help companies on the road. Can you give us some examples on how companies have benefited from such investments today?
Absolutely. And I can give a large example, which is the Cineplex Store, and then also just smaller examples of really this approach and this philosophy around piloting and testing and learning. And so, about 5 years ago, Cineplex made an investment in building out a digital platform. It's called the Cineplex Store. And you can, as a Canadian at home, you can buy or rent movies. And it's now up to about 10,000 movies that you can access, and new releases, catalog, the whole thing. And so while it competes with iTunes and Google Play and now Amazon Prime, what makes this store for Cineplex especially really unique is this notion of a full customer journey and bridging that, movies go through windows and we're going to follow customers as they go through windows, and bridging that that full visit, and really underpinned by a very strong loyalty program in partnership with Scene. And so, Flash, that was the initial piece, it growing steadily year over year. Flash forward to 2020, when you have COVID just shutting down the exhibition business, right? And so on one hand, you have, just because of these stay-at-home orders, this kind of restriction from a business perspective in what one area of the business is doing. And then on the other, Cineplex had already made those investments in the infrastructure, the team, they had the experience and the contracts in place, so that when Canada showed up, because there was nothing else to do in March when you were told to stay home, we were ready. And so I think we basically quadrupled in about 4 weeks. So this rapid spike in users, being able to scale and continue to do programs like popcorn delivery with Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes. So this is, again, connecting that, the love people have for theater, and my Canadians love their Cineplex popcorn, it's amazing. And being able to watch a movie at home, but with your popcorn in hand. Really great innovative programs with clients, like you get wine in a movie delivered to the home, and then in partnership with the studios, and really this was kind of, it happened ad hoc throughout 2020 and now more formalized into 2021, are these new products, so premium video on demand. And again, as an industry, we knew this was coming, and we're actually eager to being able to help the customer kind of watch the movie where they wanted to. And so now that, with certain studios in place, it's actually a very exciting time to have this digital platform up and running at scale, when the industry and communities are having to pivot left, right, and center, sometimes on a daily basis. So I think that's just one, great example of companies which may be more, planning ahead. So putting your investments in early, and I think not waiting for everything to be perfectly revenue positive in a short period of time. The investments pay off, sometimes in ways and in timing one doesn't expect. And then building on that a little bit, I think the exciting thing for the team really was over last year of just this notion of continuing to invest, right? And what that looks like. And so, we did pilots, we did tests around online retail. Let's sell toys. We have warehouses full of toys that people would have bought in theater. Let's try selling them online. Or what would a free offering look like? Who would show up for that? Like, how do we let them know about it? Film festivals, what would that look like? And so, again, the takeaway, and I think the general advice on this, is just investing in people that bring a test and learn culture, and a curiosity and iteration to any organization in the digital space, especially, will only benefit the organization overall. Always be piloting.
I agree. And, I'd love to come visit maybe my colleagues in Canada and have this delivery of popcorn and movie and everything. This was so much fun. So talking more about companies, transforming, I'll move here to Daniela. We've seen a lot of companies transforming from their traditional strategies to digital ones. In your opinion, what is the key for bridging that communication gap between business stakeholders and technology solution providers?
Well, my views align very much with Fariba, in the sense that, to me, the way that we can have better conversations is to put the customer in the center of those conversations. When I have solution providers approaching me and spending too much time talking about themselves or talking about technology in itself, it's a harder conversation to have. To me, customer is a common language. Like, anybody can talk about the customer and what that experience should look like, and that is what brings us all together. And even the sales will follow after that, because if we have an amazing customer experience, I'm a big believer that the best customer experience is what's going to bring the revenue behind it. When you think about it the opposite way, I find that companies compromise too much, and that not always goes that way, but the opposite way. So internally, so within the organization, I again agree with Fariba that it's about turning down those biases about what a tech person looks like and what a business person or a marketer looks like from every perspective. So in our company at the source, my IT partners, they are always there. I look for them and I talk to them for e-commerce advice. I'm not looking at them just for as technical solution providers. They are experienced in the field and they've seen so many retail and e-commerce interactions. So we collaborate in a way that we educate our marketing and our business people in technology, and similarly, the technology people are very savvy in finance and what a good business case looks like, etc. Like it cannot be if we each are in our corners, we cannot collaborate and then produce the best results for the company. Another thing that I really am a huge believer, but I'm biased because that's my background, is that I really believe in soft IT positions as a bridge between those two areas. To me, project managers, business analysts, they can make all the difference in the world. When you have a good business analyst that knows how to ask the right questions, how to dig deep into the requirements of the business side, you can get amazing products delivered. If you have a project manager that is only just checking boxes and asking what time things are going to be done, it's a wasted effort in there. When I have project managers that are really project leaders that know how to collaborate, how to remove roadblocks, how to support people, then projects go amazing and we can conquer the world. So I'm a huge believer in really investing in those positions, not just on developers and system architects. And I think the relationships, again, it's about having relevant conversations and being very open. I love our culture because we are very honest and transparent. When you have too much politics in a company in which everybody's kind of playing games, it's very hard to move things forward. But if we're all have common grounds, common KPIs, and we're all going towards the same goals, and we share them and we talk about them and we understand them or help our partners understand them as well, then we can have more really honest and relevant conversations and not be afraid of disagreeing. In my culture, I'm pretty straightforward and I always speak up my mind. And my partners are like that. And I love that we are able to have very, very honest conversations and say, well, I don't like how you are handling this, or I think we need to give this other thing a try, or I strongly believe in this idea, and having that comfort that you have your partner and they have your back. I think that's how we do it, and for me it works really great. I'm really happy with the relationships and how we're managing them at the source, and that reflects in our teams as well too. That culture goes from executives down to all the working teams. And to me, that's super important.
Thank you, Daniela, for sharing this. And, leadership is sometimes one of the most important things in culture. Working in different companies, you realize at the end that the way managers do interact with their teams make a huge difference in their performance and other things. So we'll talk a little bit here about leadership style and managing groups in the time of COVID. So I'll go back to you, Fariba. In one of your articles, you did mention that empathy is a much needed leadership trait right now. So whether a company is coping with the aftermath of COVID-19 restrictions, addressing systematic racism in our communities, or erasing the anxiety of returning to a new normal, and that our path forward requires compassionate communities. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
I think our environments always needed empathy. I think it's human nature that we want to be understood, to be respected, to be heard. And compassion is a human virtue. So somewhere along the way, the workplace was designed not quite aligned with who we are as human beings. A lot of our workplace is designed after, it's post-industrialization. So if you think about how workplaces are designed, they're designed with people going 9 to 5, taking the train, driving, commuting, and we measure performance based on, oh, this person was at their desk with their nose to the grindstone. Guess what? That's not human nature. We are complex beings with needs and aspirations, families, commitments. I think this empathy is not a new thing. There's so much research on EQ, emotional intelligence. Women have it in spades, men have it too, but we have it. We have been part of a community for millennium. We have worked together, we have shouldered, heavy work, raising families, doing all of that. So when I look at COVID, I think all it has done, it has put the lens on it. There was a time where we said we can't have people work from their homes. Oh, we'll do sort of flexible workplace. The job sharing was a big deal. 2 women both having children, job sharing. So there's so much research about women leaving workplace as their careers are flourishing. Why? Because our workplaces are not designed to accommodate different types of families' needs. So I think the way we measure productivity has come under the microscope here. COVID has proven that we can actually operate differently. We can be productive. We can deliver everything we delivered before and more, and doing all of that while we're homeschooling our kids because the schools are closed. Now, it's very stressful, but it has come to prove that maybe our assumptions about workplace are not quite right. And maybe having the empathy while you're in a meeting and somebody's cat comes on the desk or somebody's child is pulling on the parent, that's totally natural. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's who we are. So I think what maybe, and then we go to, racism and just how the workplaces are designed. They're not designed with all the abilities in mind. They're not designed to accommodate different learning styles, different levels of contribution, and that has to change. If we really want to have an inclusive workplace, we have to stand back and say, humanity has reached a new level of maturity. How do we design workplace with everyone in mind? COVID has forced us to think about that. And I must tell you, these artificial barriers that have been put in our place of hours at one's desk, those are really artificial. So where do we go from here? I think we have an immense opportunity not to go to post-COVID. My greatest, worry is when COVID is over, is business as usual. There's so many movements in our history, but once it changes, things go back to normal. Shouldn't be like that. We have an opportunity to look at it, to check our assumptions, to create workplaces that are truly inclusive. And that's not just the gender. It's about ages, it's about preferences, it's about abilities, to really make it accessible to everyone and encourage everyone. So that's what I believe. And I see it as a platform we have been waiting for a long time, to showcase that alternative ways of working are not only possible, but very viable. And that's what we are seeing firsthand.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I see that some of the audience were for the points that you pointed out. And we totally agree with you, having this compassion and empathy. And I see it from our company here at Avenue Code. They've been giving us the flexibility. They have been understanding different situations we go through. As long as we're performing, we're, having the same goal of success. So compassion is very important for leadership. And we'll talk a little bit here about businesses specifically in Canada. So I'll move here to you, Caitlin. Canada has been following a lockdown order for a while now. So how do you think businesses in Canada changed and adapted after a year almost into COVID? And how did you manage to keep your team engaged? I know that we had a discussion and you spoke a little bit about engaging with your team. I'm excited for you to share this with our audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is everything changed. We're living through a black swan event in many ways, and I think that comes with, as Fariba said so well, just some incredible opportunities to really strategize and pause. Right, the great pause is upon us. Right, so what does growth look like? What should normal be? From a mindful, intentional, constructed way, and whether that's in my personal community, whether that's my work community, sectors that I'm in. I think again, there's a phenomenal opportunity that generationally doesn't come that often, I think, to just set the bar a little higher. And, I think about climate change, you think about all of these urgent, present asks of us in this time. I think, again, when we look at how we do strat planning, how we do operations, how do we look at talent, attracting talent, retaining top talent, all of these are, again, opportunities that come out of very uncertain times that we are in at the moment. And so I think initially for many of the businesses, and I think for many of you on the call that have been living this in your various kind of Canadian corporate or business lenses, is there was this rapid virtualization. So all of these companies, some more mature than others, suddenly had to do, Teams or Zoom. And I think, we all got there, but I think it was harder for some groups than others. And, also this notion of unpacking what normal workday even looks like, right? Whether it's family demands or just someone couldn't work those hours because they're now having to move back to Vancouver and they're on a different time zone. And so again, this feeling of huge uncertainty and not being able to plan really day to day. But so in, Toronto, for example, what's going to be announced today? We don't know. So I really feel for, and I think frankly, the long-term impact that comes from a lot of the businesses like restaurants, like airplane, transportation industry, the supply chain disruption that comes out. I don't think we don't even know what that looks like yet. And I think there's a number of, especially small companies, the smaller ones that are critical to a really robust Canadian economy that may have kind of made it or couldn't make it early, and that are still we're still months away from being at opened at scale. And so I think acknowledging that on one hand, huge opportunity, and I think in some ways a responsibility to do business and think differently about it, but also while acknowledging the real cost that it's come at, and to make sure that's also part of the recovery plan, right? We can't go back to normal. So, and you think about the companies and the groups that have done really well. And I think about, locally for me, some bookstores and flower shops, our local bakery, they're actually busier than ever because they've leaned into connecting with their communities. They've really, some of them were better than others at getting, online or not, but really using social and really using what tools they had just to, as we all have gone through those waves of COVID and all of the different communities at different pacing. I think, again, huge opportunity for the local, right? Connecting with the businesses within those communities. And I think the coming out of it, I suspect that those groups that really lean into it, and again, not just the small ones, but also the larger organizations that keep that front and center, I think they will be in a very different position longer term. So keeping the team engaged, again, it's been, this last year, I think might have been, despite all of the insanity, I think my favorite in my career to date. And I think it comes with the ready insanity that's being everybody having to show up at 150% for days on end, and then for weeks, and then for months on end, because it didn't slow down. And I think the keeping your team engaged when there's uncertainty for their family lives, for their communities as well. I think we spent a lot of time talking. We talked about kind of where are you at and how are we transitioning to this now virtual team space, and a lot of the norms that we had maybe initially when COVID hit. So there's kind of this mass 80, 90-hour week panic phase that maybe we got into some habits that we then had to change a little bit along the way. And so again, building this conversation in around adapting to what feels right and what everybody needs on the team in the moment, I think was a key part of it. I think another key part on the engagement side is really looking at really our norms, right? And again, this notion of back to normal, again, what can we do now that we want to do differently 2 years from now, 3 years from now? And so, on our team, it's looking at inclusivity, it's looking at program. How do we use our channels and how do we use our platforms to really leverage them for social justice, for change in our country? And we'd always wanted to do that. It was always kind of in there in the plan, but I think having this explicit mandate and an explicit strategy around how do we do this at scale, repeatable, and driving results. So also, I think that was an important lesson, I think, is we're coming out of it. And then maybe the third kind of team way, and I'm putting myself, because I was definitely on that as well, as I think making sure the light at the end of the tunnel was clear, and that was around development goals. So for myself, for the team, of talking about, what do you want to do? Because as we kind of ramp up out of COVID, there's actually going to be more opportunity for you to figure out, do you want to go this way? Do you want to try this? Do you want to do some tests and pilots on your own to see, what you're interested in? And so I think that was another area, I think, of using this time to really help everybody, myself included, on figuring out what career and what your life might look like. Nariman, are you there? Is it back to you? Oh,
I feel we lost her.
Did we lose her? Oh no. Daniela, I'm gonna throw a question to you then. Are you there?
Connection
Perfect.
off a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah. We cannot see you, but we can hear you. Well, could. This is a classic.
So Daniela, maybe you want to say something
Yeah,
about
I can. I can go ahead.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows that we talked a little bit about what we wanted to cover today. So I'll just go ahead and tell you a little bit about how the question for me was, after many companies moved to remote working, top talents were attracted to such companies and job searches spiked. And they wanted to know a little bit about how my experience leading teams, remote teams, and if remote working helped me retain and attract greater talent. So I must say that I'm super happy and proud about the Source and how we face this crisis. I think I do believe, like Caitlin, that we're gonna come out of this way better than ever. Of course, we wouldn't have chosen this as a methodology to accomplish that, but I think as people and as businesses, we are just growing and getting so much stronger. And I think for me at the Source, we are very we already sorry, I lost my track. Goodness. Working from home, we're very lucky that we're in tech, because for us it was just way easier to shift and to work from home and use all the technology. The teams that were not as tech or not in tech had probably a harder time adjusting to the new tools. My team was like over the moon. They were super happy working from home. And we're a bunch of nerds. So we were very happy learning new collaboration tools and really learning all of the features. And I feel like we're collaborating better than ever. One thing that I find refreshing is that we realized that we had to be better at communicating, because the misinterpretation is the risk of misinterpreting or wasting time. I feel like it's a higher risk being online, because you're in instant messaging, things can get lost in translation, or you're not you don't have people in front of you. You cannot run into somebody in the hallway and just clarify something. So I find that we are better at really being clear on what needs to be done and how things need to be done. So our communication and our collaboration, I think, are more sophisticated than they were when we were in person. In terms of how if it's helping us retain people, absolutely. I think the Source was amazing in keeping up with the right priorities. Since the beginning of the crisis, the priorities have been always the same, and it's health first, then business continuity, and then the rest. So I think having the wellness of our teams as a top priority is something that our teams have valued very much, and that makes them create loyalty with the company, right? We everybody is grateful for the opportunity to continue to have a job, which is obviously a great thing to have, but not only that, but also stay productive. Like we always were, a lot of flexibility was put in place so people could accommodate to their different needs at home. And that, I think that's very valuable in terms of retaining. I didn't start my timer, so somebody's gonna have to tell me when we're running out.
Just to build, I think there's a question coming through, Daniela. Oh,
yeah.
Nariman is back.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of attracting new talent as well, just having that flexibility of being able to work from home, I think it's really important, and being able to really tap into talent wherever they are. I think is going to be tricky when it's time to go back to the office, and if we want people to have home offices. But I think it's still like the mindset. I think a shift forever. Like it's not like we've all been saying, we're not going back to the same normal that we knew before. So I think every company, including ours, has proven the model that we can succeed in working from home and having a different timeshare between being in the office and working from home. And I think that's going to be really valuable in us keeping and attracting talent. It has some implications, logistics implications, obviously, and financial as well. But I believe in the long run, it opens up the markets for the talent, and that's going to be good for every business, because we're going to be able to really not just attract the talent that we can reach locally, but also any talent, wherever they are. So I think it's beneficial overall. And one thing that we've done and that has kept my team going and engaged and really has been our saving grace is that we are taking care of each other. So we're, making a point and checking in and making sure that everybody has what they need. And if anybody's having a difficult day, either logistically or mentally, putting that in center. Like there's no, we cover for each other. We have each other's back. And I think that's super important, and it keeps all of us, leaders and teams, working teams, going. So that's my experience.
Thank you for sharing. And I'm so sorry, guys, I faced some technical issues here. I'm not sure what happened, but we'll keep going. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for, get along with what happened here. We have 15 minutes going on. I would like to still give the audience some time to ask some questions, but I still want to go over the part of, empowering women in the tech industry. So I'll give you a little bit of time, each of you guys, to speak about it, and then we'll move fast for the Q&A. I'll start with you here, Fariba. I know you are very passionate about adding more women in the tech force. What are the ways to attract more women from all ages, young and older ages, into the tech industries? And how can we influence the diversity movement in tech in general?
Thank you. That's a very important question. I think we have to go back to what's the role we play in ensuring that women can advance. First of all, that they enter technology and that they can advance. I get asked a lot of times about how do you become a CIO? Why do we have so few CIOs that are female? And I have thought about that a lot. It's not just women entering IT, developers, QA, BAs, whatever their passion is, but also how do we help them along to advance? So one of the things I have been doing is, first of all, it's very important that women support women. It's very important that no matter where we are in our careers, that we do have a voice and we express our opinions, and that we create environments where people curiosity, but they also have courage to put themselves forward. So not to worry about being an architect, going to information security, be a developer, but also going to management. I've found that one of the things we can definitely do is, first of all, communicate more to young people entering universities. And then as people choose professions, to really highlight how wonderful an IT career is. I think it's one of those that allows us to contribute. The environments hopefully are more inclusive, and we can enter and really be one of the ones that are in the frontiers of learning. But the one thing I wanted to say, and because I have a lot of sisters on this call, women have to support women. Earlier on, you asked a question about leadership, and I didn't answer it in the interest of time. But we have to create an environment where it's okay to be successful. It's okay to be ambitious. It's okay for a woman to want to expand their horizon, do more, and connect. And women have to watch out for that. So if they see talents, possibilities in another woman, that they advocate for that person, they give them opportunities. So in my career, what I have done, I have been intentional about developing women. I've been intentional about recruiting them, intentional about advocating for them, intentional about tapping them on the shoulder, saying, hey, you can do this, or creating environments where they don't have to give up and they have children or they take time out. So to be intentional, both for men and women, but I have made it my journey that as our generation retire, that there are female leaders who will take their place. And one last thought I wanted to share with you, being always remembering that for women, there is this sisterhood bond. We should never forget that. In a village, you see all the women helping each other, collaborating. I think workplace is very analogous, that we should really go out of our way to encourage and support other women and all the people. I'm not saying we should be biased, but all the women, to encourage them, to give them stretch opportunities, and thus create the next leadership of women in IT.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure this is alone an inspiration for a lot of women to have bigger goals, to do things they might be afraid of doing or putting a step in. I'll move here to Kate really quick. And I want to ask you, what do you think would be the biggest challenge for the next generation of women to enter maybe the tech industry? And how can we be strong role models for them?
I think the Globe and Mail had a really good series of articles that came out in January called The Power Gap, and I think talking about biggest challenge of we're not making progress. Women are still not getting into leadership positions, especially ones that are in revenue or sales or operations. So we're getting better at getting onto the kind of C-level or board of directors, but typically still in support roles. So HR and legal and finance. And so I think being at the table, what does being at the table mean, and having a voice in driving a company and driving the success of a company? I think we have a long way to go at every level. And so it's not just entry level, I think it's equally all through there. And I think very tactically, some of the things that I think to consider, or, again, within an organization is often I find with my colleagues, so let's say at my level, so VP, executive director, SVP, encouraging women just to stay in the game, because, as Fariba mentioned earlier, all the odds are stacked against you pretty much. And so sometimes just knowing and I love that term of the sisterhood, and call it my tribe of women that are there for me, thick or thin. And I know that when I have a moment where I'm I can't, I do not know if physically I can do this anymore, there's a group of people within the company, but also externally, that supports you. I think as a leader and as a woman, I think showing up authentically, we talk about that a lot, but I think really, and Daniela hit on that earlier as well, of this notion of like checking in and talking as much about your own life and what's happening, because I think especially for women that are thinking about having children or might have young children, or they might want to do IVF, but they don't know, like, again, creating this conversation, which is very much around, it's a journey and we're all on different, stages of that, but we will support each other. I think the other is being very explicit in your ambition. I think encouraging women to say it and say it out loud, and then to say it to their network out loud. And so I've joined for a while now the kind of executive women in product and the women in product groups on Facebook. And I just love these women because, again, it's a series of asks and questions and conversations around just building and tapping into these knowledge groups, really around being women in fields that aren't often supportive of women at entry or senior levels. And so again, finding those groups, tapping into them and asking the questions, and not being afraid to show up. Final thought would be, I guess two more final thoughts. One is, I think, so as a leader, taking an approach that's about championing, not mentoring. Mentoring should always happen. I think that's a key part of it. But I think when you're in a leadership role, being able to champion women, what that means more is like ensuring they're on the key projects, ensuring that they are considered for those promotions. It's more than giving advice. It's actually making sure they get the experience and their names are put forward. So I think, again, that's something meaningful that we can all continue to do in our organizations. And then my advice for every woman and man, everyone that I work with is always, you have to be in the data. We live now in a time where data is ubiquitous. There's a lot of data, but again, Daniela mentioned this earlier, making it actionable, going from insights to action, and then iterating further on that action is the rarest skill that if you are able to do and think that way, you don't need to have the perfect answer, but if you can show that you are using data for an insight that then you're going to make a business decision or a change on, I think that for women especially brings credibility and a grounding that I think for many other societal reasons, sometimes we aren't given credit for on the table. So again, my thing is just all become data experts.
I totally agree with you. And I've seen this happening a lot. A lot of management ask, well, do you have the data? Can you back up your opinion with the data or anything? Speaking about mentors and help, I'll move here to Daniela with the last question for today. We know that you've worked in Venezuela for a while before you moved to Canada. So based on your experience, if a woman did not have a tech-savvy support system, what would be the best way to get mentors or help that one might need?
Well, first, I'm super happy that you asked me that question because I'm really proud. And all of my community, all of my university friends from Venezuela, a bunch of them are women. More men than women, but there's a few women, and they're all over the world. Some of them are still back home, and there's others in important positions in good companies like in Google and Apple and many other companies around the world. So I'm really proud of where we came. Obviously, for us, one big ticket was our degree. So having the computer science background from a accredited university, it's always an open door wherever we went. And that it's not always the case, and not always everybody has access to that. By the way, public education in Venezuela. So it was easier, right? Not everybody can afford with money, but also not everybody can afford a 5-year career development. So my advice would be community. When I thought about this question, I thought networking, but people, I think, confuse networking by a very sales and very cold process, and that is not it. I think community is joining other people with your interests that could not necessarily have it figured out. They could be as lost as you are. But the point is that together you're stronger. And that's a philosophy that I apply for anything in my life, not just career development, but in anything. Collaboration and hearing from other people and getting advice and knowing what other people are doing and how they're doing it and where did they go and etc. That is so valuable, and building community to the kids today, or the younger people. Everybody has access to information. It's not that like when we were younger, the potential of having a device in your hands and having access to so much information training, free information. You don't have to spend $1 to really access a lot of knowledge, but it's overwhelming. And if you don't know where to start, and that's where the community can help you really orient your interest in how you can develop yourself. So to me, if you have a device, and if you don't have a device, there's computers in the public library too. It's about joining those communities. I Googled just for fun, women in tech, just to see, and there's so many local organizations that are ready to take in members and to teach you for free what's the way, what's the path. So to me, it's joining people that are going to help you power yourself. So in this case, so many women are willing and eager to help others, and they already went on the path. We already went on the path, so we can help newer generations to get there as well.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much, ladies, for speaking about your experience, your insights, and giving this amazing advice for all our audience. This is advice women can use, and men as well. So I'll give here some time. I know we have like 3 minutes, but I'll ask one of the questions that we received from the audience, and you ladies feel free to, speak up for it. One question said, do you foresee high demand on any specific skill set in the near future in the Canadian industry, where remote workforce is no longer a luxury? Our IT group has been doing more outsourcing in India because of the very low cost, so it's impacting more local resources. Feel free to add your opinion on that.
Well, I'm going to say, Caitlin said it. Data is, you cannot go wrong with data and data science. And I think even if companies tend to outsource, they tend to outsource development roles. But the soft IT roles that I spoke about before, BSAs, project management, IT oriented, typically are local. I haven't seen them outsource. So they are, I call them soft just because they're not hardcore programming, but they're critical, they're in demand, we need. So I would say those are good places to start, but definitely anything related to data science is going to be hot for a long, long time to come.
And there are other fields. I think even development, remember, Canada is a hub for technology. Even if work goes to India, there's a lot of work right here in Canada for developers, for data engineers, for data scientists, for security specialists. It goes on and on. And I can tell you a lot of tech companies are setting up shops in Canada. So while some companies may think the best thing is just to outsource, we should have a global workforce, because there's a lot of work coming to Canada. And if anything, the whole digital agenda is accelerating, and that needs hardcore IT people. So don't give up. Every field in IT is in demand. And if one company doesn't want you, too bad for them. There are many companies who do.
That's right. Thank you so much for sharing these, ladies. We are unfortunately out of time. For our attendees that we could not answer your questions, we will keep those in consideration and possibly share them with our panels. Feel free to connect with Fariba, Caitlin, and Daniela over LinkedIn. I can tell you that they are active, so you'll get to know about their updates, their opinions about different things in the tech industry. So please check their LinkedIn and the invitation that you got. I also want to thank really quick our company Avenue Code for coming up with this amazing initiatives and allowing us to meet you extraordinary ladies in tech. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Fariba, Caitlin, and Daniela. And thank you for all the audience who joined us. I hope you guys have an amazing and safe rest of your year. Thank you so much.